Hi Sid, I'm back in London. This week I thought it would be interesting to talk about coordinates. The orange square on the board is at a particular point. How would you describe that point? How could you measure it? A simple approach is to use some coordinates based on one of the corners. I've chosen the top left-hand corner, and you can see that it is 70 centimeters from the left and 40 centimeters from the top. So the location of the square can be described as 70, 40. That's simple enough. Another approach that works just as well is to use polar coordinates. Here we find the middle of the board, and this is 0 degrees from the middle, 90, 180, 270, and back to 360 or 0 degrees. We measure the angle from the middle to the square, and that's about 20 degrees. And the distance, the radius, is 40 centimeters. So another way we could describe the location of this square is to say that it's 20 degrees and 40 centimeters from the center in polar coordinates. These are just two of many different types of coordinate systems. However, they all rely on a fixed point, the corners, the center, or something like that. So what happens if there is no fixed point? Here's an example of where there are no fixed points. The square is on a sphere. If you take coordinates from the left side to the square and from the top to the square, those coordinates are not useful because the sphere can be turned and the coordinates now don't match with the square, even though the square has not been moved. This is a problem for people who draw maps. How do you explore? How do you travel if you don't know where you are or where you're trying to go? You need to have a system of coordinates that everyone agrees on. And coordinates rely on there being a fixed point. 200 years ago, a scientist working in this building was drawing maps. He needed a fixed point of reference, so he created one. This building is point 0, from which he measured the rest of the world. 200 years later, we still consider this to be point 0. My phone's GPS reports that this park has a longitude of 0. Google Maps reports that London has a longitude of 0. Da Nang has a longitude of 108. That means 108 degrees east of London. San Francisco has a longitude of minus 122. That means 122 degrees west of London. If the scientist had been Vietnamese, then 0 would have been in Vietnam, and the world's coordinates would be quite different. Have a good week, Sin.